All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Before we kick off, let's wait a minute or a couple of seconds for all the others to join. In the meantime, let's do some introductions. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthias Hellal. I'm the sales director for the DACH market and APAC region here at Keyless. And today here with me is Alexander. Alex.
Exactly. Hello, everyone. Alexander Meyer, my name. I'm the VP Sales for the DACH region at ID Now. And yeah, we are happy, Matthias and I at Keyless and ID Now, that we can together give you some insights into what we have actually built as partners.
Perfect. Right. So the goal of this webinar is basically to show you how ID Now and Keyless work together as a combined solution. So one API, one SDK to combine identity verification and authentication. So ultimately, the idea is how can we assure someone's identity throughout the whole life cycle. Before we chat, maybe Alex, a word or two about ID Now, please.
Sure. Happy to give you a short overview about our company. So ID Now was founded in 2014, based in Munich, and we have in the last years become one of the leading European platforms for identity verification. We work in different industries, mainly focusing on financial services, operating in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, and also many more countries in Europe. We are processing around 7.5 million identifications, KYC checks per month. And our platform offers a wide range of different products, from fully automated to hybrid to assisted solutions, from identity verification to signatures to KYC checks. And we obviously also comply with the most common regulations in Europe, being it eIDAS 2.0, the BaFin circular in Germany, and also obviously already the upcoming AMLR changes in 2027 across Europe.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Impressive numbers. So yeah, quickly, Keyless, we are the leading provider of privacy-preserving biometric authentication. So we come from an academic background and pioneered a new category, which we call zero-knowledge biometrics. So basically what we do is we help verify and assure someone's identity with facial recognition, but without ever storing any biometric information. So with a quick look into the camera, we know it's a real user, and we do that super secure, super private in just 300 milliseconds. Right, let's get started. The challenge we today face in our digital journey is that when we sign up to a new service, let's say a bank account, we still rely on authentication mechanisms that are insecure by design, right? So you typically sign up, you create an account, you use your email and a password, you maybe link your phone number to that. And once that first step is done, especially in regulated markets, you're then asked to verify your identity. And this is where our partner ID Now comes into place. So you go through the KYC process, and then you know it's a real user. But that is the challenge, that is the problem, that when you later log back into your account and you want to authorize a transaction, you are then asked again to reuse those same credentials that you've been used in the first place. So your email, your password, or your PIN code. Now, these credentials, though, never really truly link the verified identity from the KYC process. Just, because I have a username and a password, or if I know someone's credential, it doesn't mean it's really me who is accessing the service. So, and that's the core issue, right? So we are missing a link between the KYC and the authentication steps. Now, Alex, let's look a little bit deeper and understand what the real issue is here.
Exactly. Let's look into the details. So nowadays, if you imagine classical onboarding, what happens in the beginning, you want to, for example, identify yourself for opening up a bank account. So our side, for example, we would check the ID card itself, read out the data, making sure that it's also not a fake ID. We would compare the face to the ID, to the face on the, or the picture on the ID card, and also perform a liveness check. So in the end, we know it's a legitimate person. And what happens then as the next step when you want to log in into your bank account, usually you would receive an SMS OTP, or you would use your Face ID if you have a iPhone, for example. So we see again the disconnection here. And obviously SMS codes are easy to phish, expensive to send. In every time you use it, there's a cost associated to that. And even banks were still sending out via paper-based ton lists, for example. So that still exists, and that's slowly and costly. And looking especially on the Face ID feature, which is from a user perspective super convenient. The problem we see is that it compares your face to what's stored locally on your phone, but it doesn't compare to the KYC which you're using in the onboarding for opening up the bank account. So there's a risk which comes ahead of that. If your phone got stolen, you have access to the PIN of the phone, and you can easily change, for example, the face you're using for the Face ID.
Yeah.
And that's what we also see in numbers. So 27% of all account takeovers are actually caused by phishing attacks. And that can quite often also happen by using, for example, the Face ID. So it's a real problem also, especially in regulated markets such as banking, where institutions must prove who actually performed the transaction or actually entered the bank account.
Yeah.
So in short, today's authentication methods don't connect the verified identity to the person who later authenticates. And that's missing. And now we want to show you how we are actually bridging that gap together and to make it safer and also at the same time still convenient for the end user.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the partnership really comes in, right? So together we solve the disconnect between KYC and authentication. Now, as you explained, and what we see later also in a quick demo, is that once you verified the real identity with ID Now, the same KYC selfie now can be seamlessly registered with keyless. So from that moment on, every time a user logs in or re-verifies, performs a transaction, we re-verify it's the same face that has passed the KYC check. And that's very important. It's not Face ID, could be anyone's face theoretically on the device. We compare the face that has passed your KYC check. So now with that combined solution, we can now re-verify and re-verify the real identity of the person who is accessing the account. And importantly, as I mentioned before, we do it in such a way that it's completely privacy preserving. And it's very important. So we as keyless, we never store, see, or process or transmit any biometric information. Everything happens locally on the client. And since we are natively integrated into, let's say, a banking app, we also assure it's not just a face, but we also check the device. So as part of our solution, we can claim and we say, this is a multi-factor authentication mechanism by design. So with just a glance on the camera, we check the device and both the face at the same time. Now,
Exactly.
Alex, yeah,
exactly. So as rightfully explained, we have tackled now two main fields. So security, as Matthias just mentioned, so the fact that keyless can check or authenticates the KYC and the phone in the end. And not a stolen phone or changed Face ID won't work here. We tackled privacy, so no biometric data is stored. But what about the UX? How does it actually look like from an end user perspective? Because what we've seen in the beginning is that it's quite a struggle if you have to identify yourself, open a bank account, and then there's a gap where you have to use, again, a different solution to sign up for or to get an SMS OTP or whatever. So how does it look like? Let's take a look. We have prepared one short demo for you. So you can directly enroll with ID Now. So in your initial onboarding, as said, we check the ID card, we read out the data, and then in the background, you can see this exactly. This is the background of the ID card. Data gets read out and also compared to the data which has been handed over initially in the onboarding. The face comparison happens, and also at the same time the liveness detection, so making sure it's a real person.
Right.
And the convenient part is exactly, yeah, you can go ahead if you want to.
Yeah, but now exactly now
Yeah.
we kick in. So now the face that you have originally now used for the onboarding, we can immediately authenticate.
Exactly.
So
So there's
yeah.
no need to do some to register, especially again for the authentication part. That happens in the backend at the same time, and you can directly, for example, log in into your bank account.
Right. Now, that's great for new users, but one of the biggest challenges we face today in biometrics is how do we implement and adopt this to millions and millions of users, right? So how do we actually get people to use it, and how do we authenticate a huge amount of users that have been onboarded already through your system or even others? And how do we make sure we do it in such a way that it's not only compliant? Now, let's take a digital bank as example with a couple of million users. You go through the KYC process, and as a bank, you are regulatory obliged to keep the data secure. So you have the selfies from that onboarding process on your premises. The challenge is now twofold. How do you access those selfies in a compliant way? And how do we enroll those users without asking for another selfie? And that's where the service we call the IDV bridge comes into play. So it allows organizations to silently enroll existing users in the backend without asking another selfie, without actively looking into the camera. The way how it works, in simple terms, we deploy a service on the bank's premises, and through a simple API call, the selfie is sent to this component, which is locally stored. The output of this API call is a cryptographic transformation, and that is the keyless ID. So what we get is a randomized data set, which is a representation of someone's face. So for new users, as you just explained, Alex, right? So it's already embedded, so it's simple, it's already part of the onboarding. And for existing users, for existing customers, we can reuse the selfies that you have on record. So a very elegant way of enrolling millions of users without asking them to re-enroll their face.
Exactly.
Perfect. Now, okay, so we have learned how we can enroll it. We have learned how we can embed the solutions, and what we want to look at now is a couple of use cases. Yeah, you want to
Right. I mean, the more interesting part, how can you actually use it and what can you apply it? And as initially mentioned, there's one really common use case, obviously, logging into any kind of an account, can be a bank account, can be also getting access to crucial data, for example, where this has been stored with yourself. So as shown also in advance, you identify, for example, with us, and then as a next step, you want to get access to your bank account, use the either at the same time enrolled authentication solution by keyless, or also in the background if you're already an existing account, existing customer, and then you can just access your bank account by showing your face, and that's it.
Exactly. Another use case, which is very common, especially in Europe under PSD2 or now upcoming PSD3 compliant regulation, is that how do you can use biometrics for approving payments, not just local PINs, passwords, or Face ID. Now, it's important to say that you don't need to use our service for every step in the journey, right? most of the users or customers use keyless selectively. So, for example, for high-risk transactions, depends on your risk profile. Now, you can in that case, for example, for convenience, just use Face ID to log in. And then when you want to be really sure and when it really matters, you can confirm a high-risk payment with keyless. And as I said quickly before, when you embed the SDK natively into your application, we also verify the device. So it's with a simple look into the camera, it's multi-factor by design. Now, last but not least, one of the most used or most deployed use cases we have today is, we call it device binding or recovery of someone's account. I think everyone can relate to that. You have maybe lost your phone, or you have got your phone stolen, or you even buy a new one. Now with Christmas upcoming, this is a very typical process for every bank, that you need to rebind your identity to that new application, to the application you download from the App Store. Now, today I've seen many ways how it's happening. As a digital bank, I mean, you can maybe send out the PIN code and SMS. You probably need to get in contact with the help desk, or if you have a branch, people get asked to get into the branch or go to the ATM machine to verify it's me. So not very convenient and not very easy to use. So with keyless and ID Now, we can do it instantly, meaning that you can reinstall your banking app, download it out with the keyless and ID Now SDK embedded, and then immediately rebind your face to the original KYC record, right? So in other words, we verify it's the same person who has verified by ID Now at onboarding with just a simple facial check. So this helps a lot in terms of speed and adoption. And I think, Alex,
to sum it up, exactly. So we have almost on the next slide reached the last slide, I guess.
Yeah.
So we have tackled 3 major parts. So as mentioned, security. As you have now learned, the solution is secure, safer compared to, for example, OTPs, Face ID, because of the main reason that the initial KYC is compared and not who is actually just at that moment having his Face ID connected to the phone. No data is stored, and from a user perspective, I think even as important as the security part, it's still very convenient. And what comes on top, as Matthias in the beginning mentioned, one API, one SDK, one platform. That's very important to highlight, that that from a technical perspective, from an integration point of view, there's only one integration. For example, why ID Now needed to use both solutions, to also or use keyless via us. They're not separate integrations needed, or 2 SDKs, whatever. So it's always one integration and easier and without any less effort and hurdle.
And if you are a customer already of ID Now, you can already use that service, right? So there is no additional effort to be taken. Now, to sum up, I think you have summed up everything. We got already a couple of questions, so maybe we go already into that section. So I think we are a little bit faster than we anticipated, but that's good. So we have more time.
If there are questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A section. So
we already got one from Avan, for example. So does it work for the banks who have physical pictures as a database in the software? So which we all know is not very good quality. That is correct. In some cases, you maybe opened your bank account many years ago, maybe use a driver license or whatever other identity document. So, but that's sufficient as long as the quality is good enough. For sure, we have basic requirements. Ideally, we use the selfie that we get from our partner ID Now, because we know that the quality is good. The quality is good enough to enroll into keyless. The basic requirement is a front-facing camera with a certain amount of resolution, but that's very, very common with all the phones out there. And if you have a photo stored from a user that is maybe a little bit old, we can still check it if the quality is good enough for the enrollment. And if not, there are also ways to actively enroll a user, whether with the application or with a web component. So there are different ways how you can do that. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. One other question was, I mean, apparently how does the commercial setup look like? I don't know, Alex, you want to take this one?
Sure, we can do that. So
high level,
quite straightforward, because depending on the use case, and that obviously assuming that a user uses the solution more than once or almost every day, depending on, as said, on the use case, you would charge one fee per user per year, and that independently of the amount of usages. Exactly. And then obviously it's volume based, something if it is in interest of yours, we can discuss afterwards. If you want to reach out to us, always possible.
Yeah.
So we got some other questions.
Yeah, one very good question. I think that's very important. So it's a matter of trust, right, and risk assessment. So do we trust the biometric data that we bridge, right, from ID Now to us? So yes, we do trust it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do this partnership. We know that the process that ID Now is going through is compliant. I mean, you've seen all the certificates, the needed basic requirements, compliance requirements that are needed to pass this check. So for sure, we trust then our customer or joint customer, the bank, to tell us, okay, this is the photo, this is the picture that passed the KYC process, and now you can reuse it, right? If you have pictures on file, and there was another follow-up questions, what are the main requirements? We can give that specific details afterwards. Then for sure, we need to re-verify if the quality is fine enough. But basically, yes, we trust our customers to send us the pictures. And we recently deployed a big bank in Italy, also a digital bank in Germany with millions of users. And we have a very, very high success rate of the existing selfies. Up to 95%, I think it was the last numbers I saw. Okay.
Good.
Right. I think one question, we have a little bit time more. So there are not only requirements in terms of the quality of the picture, for sure. Are there any limits on devices or platforms? So it works cross-platform, cross-devices. For the authentication check itself, what we need is a front-facing camera with a minimum resolution of at least 720p, but we know these devices are in the market since at least 8 or 10 years. There is no other hardware requirement. I can also use any web camera. We also have a web version of this. What you saw before is a direct native direct integration of the application. But we can do this also for mobile web or desktop.
Good.
Okay.
All right. I think we can wrap it up. Maybe just to highlight and to mention the recording will also be shared. So if you want to forward it to anyone who could not join, feel free to do so. Also, if there are any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to Matthias or myself. We are happy to answer them. And obviously also to dig deep into further discussions and to share more details.
Perfect. All right, Alex, it was a pleasure. Thanks
Likewise.
for taking the time. And yeah, have a nice day, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for dialing in. Have a good day.
Bye. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.